thank you all so very much. When I last had the pleasure of meeting so many of you at the UN Civil Society Conference in Nairobi, we left the closing ceremony saying we would show people what civil society has to offer to a process, not just what we expect from a process. It's been a long journey, both in these halls, but also in the world outside, but it is moving to see that the energy has continued throughout the year. So thank you for being here and for representing. The Action Day on Peaceful Futures for All drew on the core principles of trust, solidarity, and universality highlighted in a new agenda for peace, and it galvanized strong support for these principles. The first session of the day, the Intergenerational Dialogue for Peace, focused on the search for peace in more complex and divided world of today. The elders, 2 former presidents, and 2 young peace builders reflected together on the courage and perseverance it takes to rebuild trust, engage in dialogue and diplomacy to build peace. They spoke to the difficult work of repairing communal wounds in the past and rebuilding trust, while also protecting the planet. In a second session, we explored how patriarchal power structures affect the lives of people, how war amplifies and feeds on them. We discussed how to dismantle these oppressive structures and the role of women and men as leaders in this effort, and, get this, about how football can be a tool to achieve it. We were inspired by the poetry to break the old patterns. I'm sure many of you were moved to tears as I was. In the third session, a call to action for a future free from terrorism highlighted the need for solidarity, common understanding, and cooperative approach to countering terrorism. It reinforced the commitment to universal norms in countering terrorism, acknowledging that the evolving threat requires consistent application of international law and established norms, not selective enforcement. Youth and diverse actors were recognized as vital to achieving a future free from terrorism through leadership, innovation, and fostering global cooperation. Following this session, we walked for peace across the United Nations premises along a route that highlights the artwork that represents peace, solidarity, and global unity. Inspired by the walk, we discussed protection of civilians impacted by the use of explosive weapons in urban settings. In a moving session, we heard stories of resilience, messages urging an end of multi-generational trauma, the calls for action to 1, implementation of the political declaration on the use of explosive weapons in populated areas, 2, leave no one behind and address rights of persons with disabilities impacted by armed conflict, and 3, commit political will and funding to eliminate these threats to civilians forever. The final session, Imagining Peace in a Digital World, explored scenarios for peace and security in 2045, defined by transformative factors like advancing technology, climate change, and the future of multilateralism. The session unpacked how technologies can be harnessed for good while mitigating risks for a peaceful digital future. A call to action was presented to recommit to multilateralism through the United Nations to resolve disputes peacefully, to develop governance frameworks that are fit for purpose in a changing world, to uphold disarmament commitments, to prevent conflict and reduce human suffering, to strengthen multi-stakeholder partnerships, to tackle future risks. We stand as the last few generations who can do something about the challenges that we face, and the first few generations that have the opportunity to seize new potentials for impact. So, we the people of the United Nations, let's do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nodara. Thank you very much, Nodara, for summarizing the discussions on how we can achieve a peaceful future for all. They were indeed very insightful discussions throughout the day here today. We'll now hear from Betty Wainaina, the Rapporteur for Sustainable Future for All sessions. Betty.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to report on the session on a sustainable future for all. The message echoed by speakers throughout the day was clear. The SDGs are off track, the clock is ticking, and realizing a sustainable future for all hinges on us achieving the SDGs. Financing remains a key bottleneck for the achievement of SDGs, but we have options. Swift action on reforming the international financial architecture, addressing debt, and getting taxation right can set us on the right track. Let me highlight some of the concrete outcomes across the 5 thematic blocks of the day. In the first session on sustainable development in time of global transformation, in their dialogue, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness of Jamaica and Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed stressed that we must rebuild trust, and peace and fair representation are prerequisites for developing countries' voices to be heard. Second, in the second session, we had a discussion on international tax cooperation. This session noted that tax is as close to a panacea as we can get. It can provide income, set incentives, and reduce inequality. Speakers stressed the need for global initiatives to strengthen international tax cooperation, including the Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation. The third session delved into the question of debt. Debt servicing is crowding out SDG financing. Speakers stressed the need for global consensus to stem the rising debt crisis, including a systemic multilateral approach. Instruments including climate-resilient debt clauses and state-contingent debt instruments must be rolled out at scale. Debt resolution mechanisms need to be delivered with a speed that matches the urgency of the moment. In the fourth session on scaling up development and climate financing, the speakers stressed that both scale and quality needs to be pursued ambitiously. Public development banks play a key role in this, and the private sector will also need to step up to this challenge. The fifth session delved into the question of international financial architecture reform. The current architecture needs to keep pace with the realities of the 21st century and beyond. Only bold international financial architecture reform can save the Sustainable Development Goals. Speakers called for bigger and better international financial institutions, more accessible and affordable financing for developing countries, and SDG impact as a guiding force. Speakers across all sessions were clear that action must be taken now to safeguard the SDGs and sustainable futures for all. There is no shortage of opportunities to achieve change, as many of the speakers emphasized. The 4th International Conference on Financing for Development that will be held in Spain in 2025 provides a unique moment and a platform to turn the ambitions of the Pact for the Future into action to accelerate the SDGs through financing for the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.